Welcome to Diaspora TV Switzerland. It is almost 2 years now since the COVID-19 broke out and spread so extensively worldwide that it became a pandemic. Vaccines had to be developed within a short period of time to address the situation. Meanwhile, also myths have emerged within the population about the vaccine. Are they safe? Are they effective? This is what we have the opportunity to discuss today with you here, Dr. Mihaela Sava and Apostle Charles Ibekwe. Thank you for being here today to talk about the vaccines. And first of all, Mihaela, why is it so important to be vaccinated against COVID-19?
Thank you very much for inviting us to discuss this very important topic, which is actually the most important nowadays in our lives, probably. It's affecting our everyday life. It's very important to get vaccination, to get back to normality, to get back to life, to see an end, hopefully, to this pandemic, which is actually turning our lives around as medical doctors, but also as humans and part of the society in these days.
Thank you. But what are the vaccine options available today?
Thank you for the question. So basically, at the moment, there are more vaccines available on the market. Probably you have heard and you were reading the news. The two main ones approved in Switzerland are the mRNA vaccines produced by Moderna and Pfizer. But next to them, there are quite a few other ones, which are protein-based vaccines, which are using vector vaccines like AstraZeneca. Maybe you know it. It's approved in many other countries of the world. Here in Switzerland, such a vaccine is the one made by Johnson Pharma company. So we have plenty of options regarding vaccination against COVID-19.
And as a layperson, when you talk about two options of vaccines, and you're talking about vector vaccines, how can I imagine that as a layperson? What is the difference in functioning of both vaccines?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So basically, it's a difference in the method that is used to provide us with an immunity towards COVID-19. So the mRNA vaccines, or the well-known ones, they are using mRNA, which is being injected in the muscles and in the cytoplasm of the cells, which afterwards present an antigen when we will be confronted with the virus itself. Our body has already been exposed to these antigens, so we are already ready and prepared to fight the virus coming to us.
I see. So this is what we know classically about vaccines.
Exactly. So basically, as you were saying, the mRNA is it's just one of the techniques used to reach to the same outcome, to provide us with an immunity against the COVID-19 disease.
So now, Mihaela, there are a number of myths around the vaccines. And one of the myths I've heard is that it affects fertility. That means women or also men who are vaccinated are not able to have children later.
The good thing about these vaccines at the moment is that are the most or the best well-studied vaccines of all times. So it's very important to know that at this point we know so well what is going to happen where we are injected with this vaccine that we can literally say this infertility is very less likely to happen. It was, as we know, there are over 4 billion people vaccinated at the moment. Many of them were already vaccinated in the trials. All these people were closely monitored. Blood samples were taken every single day. People were asked how they are doing. Full body checkups were done. And so far, at no point infertility was recorded as a side effect. Moreover, we have many female and many women and also men who were able to conceive since they were vaccinated.
Okay.
So we have quite strong evidence that this is not a side effect which of the vaccines.
And but what about now women who are breastfeeding, for example, and who hadn't been vaccinated, but now that they are breastfeeding, they want to be vaccinated? Does it have an effect, an influence on the child?
Definitely, it has a positive effect on the child. So basically, women who are breastfeeding are strongly encouraged to get vaccinated. I think as a young mother, the last thing that you want to be faced with to have a severe COVID-19 disease, to be then maybe isolated from your own child. The child will definitely not have any side effects from the vaccination. The only thing that could probably happen is that he will get immune himself, which is something very desirable and a very positive effect of the vaccination itself.
So that means it doesn't make the baby fragile or so?
That's not at all the case, yes.
Okay, thank you. Apostle Charles. Now, thank you so much for being here. And I've heard among Christians that getting vaccinated means that one is accepting the so-called mark of the beast that is talked about in Revelation 15 in the Bible. What is your view about that? Have you heard of people saying that? What is your own opinion?
There's a lot of expectations that was going on regarding these COVID-19 issues, that we came to find out that there is a kind of a rumors of fear, because when you research more deeper and your intimacy with God, you'll be able to understand that this is not actually the mark of the beast. So we cannot clarify the COVID-19 as it is a judgment of God now.
Okay. Apostle Charles, so what you mean, what I understand there is that unlike what people are saying,
yes,
vaccination is not something that is ungodly.
Yes, you know, when you talk of vaccination, like we used to come in terms of prevention is better than cure. You see, vaccination is something that everybody has to understand. First of all, there is authorities that are there. The authorities are not, they're not going to create something that can destroy the humanity. The authorities are there to make sure that the hospital, the institution of the hospitals and the pharmaceutical industries, they have the necessary equipment to do something that can be able to help what the situation that we are in.
So if I understand you well, is it true then, can I really understand it this way, that if I get vaccinated, it is not that I'm accepting some mark of the beast?
No, if you are vaccinated...
on the contrary, I'm respecting what the authorities are encouraging me to do.
Yes, because if you put it in that perspective, that means that if you take the vaccine, for example, it's like I am taking the marks of the beast. You are not taking the marks of the beast, because number one, what God cannot build or create never exists. So taking the vaccination, it is not something that you as a believer to say, oh, this is a kind of a mark that I am taking.
Okay.
No, as a Christian or as a believer, wherever you are, just listen to me. You don't have to put fear in yourself, because taking the vaccination doesn't mean you are taking a mark of the beast.
Thank you so much for clarifying. Mihaela, what would you say about that? If people have allergies, are there side effects when they are getting vaccinated?
It depends very well what kind of allergy. Pretty much the straightforward answer is they should get vaccinated, even more. That means they have probably an atopical terrain, that maybe their immune system it's a bit weakened depending on the allergy. even more in such a situation, it's recommended to get the vaccination. Okay. Getting a severe COVID disease would be even more devastating for the human body. However, when there are, of course, some points to be taken in, we are not talking about general allergy. Of course, if you have allergies to cat hair or to peanuts, this doesn't influence at all neither the safety of the vaccine nor the efficacy. That means you are very well suitable to receive the vaccination. Of course, if you had a strongly or a reaction to the first dose of vaccination, of course the second one should be under medical attendance, and you should be in care, and you should really be discussing this with your doctor.
But this strong reaction to the vaccine, what it is correlated to? Is it people who are already have some sickness react strongly to the vaccine, or what is it exactly that makes some people react strongly and others not?
That's a very good point. So basically what you have to imagine, what we want to do to provide with this vaccination, we want to provide an immune response. What happens is that your body is exposed to some small pieces of the virus, which actually is helping your immune system to fight in case later on will be exposed to the real virus. Therefore, your immune system has to, let's put it this way, to work, to start producing antibodies. Of course, you would feel that. You will sometimes feel it like with maybe with a bit of fever, maybe with a bit of headache. It's like a small flu or a very small cold, usually. But it's basically the same kind of immune response which we are trying to provide with the vaccination. This doesn't count as an allergic reaction. And there are some so-called side effects, which is actually they are just expected effects, that you have a bit of pain at the injection site, that you have a bit of maybe a bit of headache or a bit of muscle pain. These are expected side effects, and I think if you had any other type of vaccination or any type of other injection, maybe even antibiotics, you will often not feel so great after having this vaccination. But I think this is worth taking taking the risk.
But what are conditions where you would not recommend the vaccine? Does it exist? Any conditions?
There are two very, there are basically no real strong vaccine contraindication to the vaccination. There are two small, very particular cases where I would be more careful. This would be if the patient had a strong reaction to the first dose, as I mentioned earlier, then I would reconsider or really carefully be of administrating the second dose. And of course, we've heard, and there are some cases of myocarditis, pericarditis, which are very, very mild usually, but even if one occurs then after the first dose, usually they appear after the second dose, and in young population, then I would reconsider if I would go for the second dose. These are pretty much the only two situations when I would be really careful and reconsider. I wouldn't say no by default. I would just reconsider as a medical doctor.
But then there is one question more about these conditions people might have before being vaccinated. If somebody is, for example, HIV positive, does the person have to inform the medical staff before being vaccinated? Are there any specific precautions that they would take?
I think it's very important to understand basically the medical staff administering the vaccination, it's only there to be informed so much that they can help you, and they can give you a better, provide you with a better medical care in case there is any suspicion that you might overreact to the vaccination. HIV by default is definitely, especially if it's a controlled HIV infection, it's not at all a contraindication, and you don't have to inform the medical staff. You don't have, you can keep it secret, and it's not interfering at all with the vaccination process.
Okay.
It's also important to say that people living with HIV with a controlled infection, so we are talking about the ones who are taking their tablets every single day, they have the regular checkup, they will have the same immune response as the general population without any differences. And the same profile of adverse events, so not more than that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for clarifying this point. And another point is children. Are there complications that are expected when children are getting vaccines?
The vaccines that we are providing at the moment, they have been studied in very large clinical trials, and children are not more prone to develop any adverse effects more than the adults are, and the range is pretty much the same. It's the same fatigue, headache, maybe a bit of muscle pain, maybe a bit more fever, but they are not prone or not to develop any more severe adverse events than the adults.
Okay. This is good to hear once. And also, when you compare the side effects of the vaccine and of the natural infection, are there differences there?
I would say that everyone who went through the infection, and particularly the ones who went through a severe COVID-19 disease, can say that the symptoms they have experienced, they wouldn't probably want to go through them again. Comparing to, if we are looking at the trade-off between having been vaccinated and having some mild symptoms, usually for 24 hours, it's very important to emphasize that actually all these symptoms are self-limiting, and usually they resolve within 24 hours or one day. Maybe in that one day you would be a bit more be willing to, if you're young, not be willing to attend a party or hang out with your friends. But I think the trade-off between having this or a COVID-19 disease is particularly with if you have risk factors for a severe disease, which would mean oxygen therapy, being hospitalized, having long-term sequelae after the disease. I guess the trade-off works for the vaccination.
I see. Now, regarding the safety of the vaccines, how is it being monitored? So people know that it is not that the vaccines have been developed and nobody is looking at it anymore, but it's still monitored, right?
Absolutely. So basically, whenever a person is getting vaccinated, the monitoring starts right away. If it's the first vaccination, you will be asked you will be seated and you will be monitored for 15 minutes, up to, depending on your comorbidity, maybe even longer, depending your medical condition, to see that nothing is happening.
Thank you very much. We have interviewed people in the street and we would like to show it to you.
So about the vaccine, I am sure that the pharmaceuticals do not want to kill you, especially wants to make money from you when you're old by selling you Viagra. So if you die right now from the vaccine, they'll not be able to sell you Viagra. So take the vaccine now so you can have Viagra in future.
And I believe in the freedom of this decision of people. I know there is a big disease right now, but my hope till yet was that the disease is going away.
Two people who have said their thoughts about the vaccines and the COVID. What is your reaction to that, Mihaela?
I will start with the second one, and I would say yes, indeed. People should have a choice, and people do have a choice, and that's very important. And we all hope that, and also the second one, he's hoping that the pandemic will come to an end. I think we all agree that we all hope this is going to happen, and in a fairly soon time. I think the choices are there, and the choices to be vaccinated is a choice. To be vaccinated with which vaccine, which method, it's a choice. You have several choices here in Switzerland. However, I think it's very important to look at also at the moral duty we have when we are taking this choice. It's fair enough to say I am young, I have no comorbidities, and my risk factors for a severe COVID disease are very low. So most likely I will have maximum a mild one. But I think we are also responsible for our families, for the ones around us, for so many people who are being vaccinated. They are doing everything they can, but they will not develop an immune response.
So, Mihaela, what do you think about this idea of the pharmaceutical industry who wants to make profit from people, make them dependent from the vaccine, which will make them dependent from Viagra later?
Oh, that's a question that comes actually quite often in my everyday work. And what I fairly can say that it's basically what I think that the lady is trying to point is that vaccination could lead to erectile dysfunction. So far, and through the mechanism of action of the vaccine, it's not expected that anywhere in the near future would come to erectile dysfunction. Men always needed Viagra since it's a medication well established. What I mean by this erectile dysfunction existed way before the vaccines appeared. They are part of my everyday clinical job is to make this prescription, so I can fairly tell you that these problems existed and they will exist with the vaccination without a link to one to another.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this. Wow. Apostle Charles, your reactions to the videos?
You see, what is important is not creating fear. Because in this, see now, the lady brought it in a direction of fear.
Yes.
So to put men on a level of age above 40 to start having panic, you know, so which means that if you don't, if you take this vaccine, this what will result in certain stage of your life. So which means it's better now to spare your life, take the vaccine, and later on at 60s. So nobody prays that 60s you start running behind the Viagra. No. So the second man in the video brought it also in a spiritual dimension, which means we hope that is going away. So that expression can make people now deviating themselves from the part of fear to a part of faith.
Yes. And one of the questions that people still have, what I hear is that people ask whether COVID-19 patients who don't have symptoms, whether they can infect other people.
If you get infected, you will spread the viruses to your family, to the ones living around you. If you go to school, then to your mates, which is obviously the bigger dimension of the pandemic. If you would only develop the symptoms and you would be staying at home and you have the symptoms, obviously there would be a chance to contain the pandemic, to contain the virus. People who would be feeling sick would be staying at home and would be at least doable or comprehensible that we could contain the virus, given the fact that many young people don't know the moment when they are infected.
That's the problem.
They are asymptomatic. This doesn't prevent them from spreading the virus and putting other lives at risk.
Exactly. Apostle Charles Ibekwe, you are pastor. I remind that you're a pastor to Christ Covenant Church in Biel. Thank you so much for bringing us the positive messages that we need to know how to deal with the situation.
Thank you also. I'm very glad to be here in Diaspora TV. And it's also my pleasure to bring out the word to the viewers, for all our viewers, for them to know that we must walk by faith and not by fear. And also that's a strength to the doctors, because we pray for them all the time. You know, pray for the authorities. It's better the religious out there not putting confusion, but join hands and pray for the authorities, pray for the doctors, because we don't know the next pandemic that is coming to challenge the world. But I know that with God, we always override and overcome.
Thank you so much. So messages of faith, messages of empowerment, messages of support. If you have further questions about the COVID-19 vaccine, you can go to a pharmacy or to your doctor, or also visit the website of your canton. We are in digital days now. Or you can also call the info line, the national info line, which is 0800 88 6644. Thank you for watching us and see you soon. Thank you, Michaela.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Apostle Charles.
Thank you very much.